Thank you for attending the May 8th, 2025 Select Board meeting to review, can I have order in the room? To review and discuss the release of right of first refusal and assignment pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 61, property located off Interlaken Crossroad owned by the Moffett Family Nominee Trust. Vote possible. So tonight, I just want to first make an announcement for Rich Bradway because he's traveling. It's on the website, but it's the Town of Stockbridge Memorial Day events on Monday, May 26th. 11 a.m. the cemetery ceremonies, 12:15 parade, 12:15 memorial program, 1:15 kids and family activities. And again, it's on the website for you can read it. And also I would just expect that we won't have any outbursts and we will be orderly and polite and courteous. I know it's an emotionally charged topic. So thank you. So I also would give a little background because there seems to be a lot of confusion.
We had a request to have a moment of silence because it's the 80th anniversary of the Victory in Europe Day from a veteran. Do you mind if we observe a moment of silence before we start?
No, that'd be fine. All right, thank you. So I wanted to give a little background because, as I said, there's confusion about the right of first refusal. So Miles Moffett notified the town. Can everyone mute it? Miles Moffett notified the town on February 11th. Prior to that date, there was an email exchange with our selectman Patrick White and Miles and Michael Canales. The discussion was Patrick White was okay to release the land for the landowner. On April 3rd, at our bi-weekly select board meeting, we discussed, never voted, that we would allow the 120 days to run out. The clock began on February 11th, 2025, which would bring the release date approximately to June 10th.
Point of order, that is absolutely untrue. Miles asked us if we would consider releasing the land, and I sent the board, which I'm allowed to do because we can talk about agenda items, and I didn't say I would consider releasing the land. That was before any of these people signed a petition or any of these people raised their hands.
Patrick, I'm not done
What
yet.
you just said is absolutely not true.
Uh,
It was a discussion on agenda item, Jamie, and we are absolutely allowed to do that. And you might avail yourself to asking your colleagues about agenda items like Chuck and I do when we're chair.
Are you gonna slam the table now too?
Absolutely not.
Okay, continuing. The Stockbridge Land Trust had a monthly meeting April 14th and voted no to acquire such land. The Laurel Hill Association sent a letter to the select board on April 18th saying no to acquire it. The CPC never had an application or applicant. Their application deadline was December 2nd, 2024. And it extended it to December 13th, 2024 for any interested applicant or nonprofit. Let's see, on April 22nd, the CPC had a meeting to discuss. There was still no applicant or application. They took a non-binding straw poll, which caused a lot of confusion. On April 22nd, Concom discussed the Moffett property, took another poll, but which also added more confusion. On April 24th, a citizen's petition arrived at the last day of the warrant discussion at Select Board, signed by 10 people. Let's see. The Finance Committee met May 30th to discuss. All members said no. It wasn't a wise or prudent purchase.
Excuse me, could you speak up?
I'm trying, my voice is not, it's my dysphonia, sorry. Yeah, it's the. Oh. So, and there's several concerns, which we can, I wrote down a few that, they shared, which their concerns was the liability insurance, the yearly cost, the cost to clean up the invasives, safety issues, also to clean up the rotten cars that are on the property. And again, free cash is directly taxpayers' dollars. It's collected from all our citizens. So those are some of my notes that I hope would be helpful. I'm sorry that it may not have felt that way. Chuck, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, so when this came across our desks for the right of first refusal, we took no action to let it go through. The reason I let it go through was to give the town entities that have the legal right to proceed with the right of first refusal to come up with the $600,000 to buy the property. None of them did for very good reasons. So to me, at that point, this should have been done with their recommendations. So then it turned into, we ended up with a citizen petition the last minute that came on that we had to put onto the town warrant, asking us to spend the $600,000 out of our $670,000 in free cash to buy this land. Now, as a selectman, we got elected to represent the town as a whole, to make our decisions to the benefit of the entire town, how it affects the entire town. And this decision is solely the selectman's decision. It's up to us. To me, once that petition came in to spend the $600,000, it opened up a whole nother things that I'm very confused about and very concerned about. One, it depletes our free cash by over 25%. It limits us for the rest of the year for anything that comes up that is we need money for. It also hampers our next year or 2 years, being our free cash is so low that we use free cash to buy our capital, to fund our capital projects, buy our trucks, work on our equipment. And that money, we use free cash, so it keeps it off the tax rate. So if you don't have the free cash on hand, we either got to kick those projects down the road, or I believe that some of those will end up being put on the tax rate, which would increase our tax rate. And we got to have some growth in town. We can't be stagnant. We can't just buy every piece of property that comes up and put it in. We have over 40+% land in Stockbridge is under some type of conservation. That's 40, almost 40 something percent that's not on the tax rate. So my opinion is that once these entities denied it, I am not in favor of spending any tax dollars, especially that amount, and puts the town in financial stress for the next 2 or 3 years. I mean, this board, Mike, and previous boards, and the finance committee worked very hard over the last several years to get to this point where we have our reserves really belong, our other things we belong. When one bond ends up and stuff, we add another, so our tax rates, instead of going up and down, stays pretty level. We're in a very good financial spot. And I think this will really hamper that and set us back, way back, and cause a lot of issues down the road that we don't need to do.
Madam Chairman, may I make
No.
a correction?
I'd rather you didn't.
But that's,
Your question?
Correction.
Why not a correction? If something's amiss, I'd like to hear it.
That the Conservation Commission and the CPA both took a straw poll in favor of acquiring that land. Just for the record.
For how much?
straw polls don't mean anything.
I understand.
Correct.
They're
The
non-binding.
CPC did not have an application, does not have any way of paying for it, any way of covering it.
But the
So
implication was that they had, the straw poll had been
The
negative. It just
implication was
clarified.
for $100,000, not $600,000.
Right.
correct. And that has, I mean, that's that whole meeting. Just, there was no application. You didn't follow any of the procedures of CPC funding and stuff. So that's, and the money isn't there. So I just feel that it's way too detrimental to the town as a whole. Never mind, these people say, well, you're only doing it for the tax income. Well, if you don't increase our tax base, then we're going to keep taxing the same tax base higher and higher and higher. And we're just going to tax our people out of town, because if you don't increase your tax base in a reasonable, smart way, then the town's just going to be too costly to live here, the tax rate. It's low now because we have a very good select board and town administrator and finance committee, and that's all I'm going to say at this point.
Is someone talking?
Yes.
Right?
Patrick?
All right. We voted to let this go till June. We voted to let this go till June. All right. The power of 10 is sacrosanct in Massachusetts. It's been in place for over 250 years, since before the American Revolution. Small towns under 10,000 that are governed by town meeting give the voters, any voter, the ability to collect 10 signatures and get something on the warrant. And that means that all the rest of us have to spend 5 minutes or 5 hours discussing that item. That is the law, and that is the way it's been in these towns for time immemorial. All right? I don't know what I think about 600,000 versus 100,000. I don't know yet. And I'll get to that on the merits of the case here. But the first thing I'll point out is that these boards do not override the will of voters. It is never, ever done. It is not up to us when the voters put a petition in, because that is their absolute right and has been there since as long as there's been a United States of America or Massachusetts. My second point. It's tradition in Stockbridge to avoid controversy right up before elections. Look, everybody gets stressed out before elections. I was stressed when I ran against Roxanne. Jamie was stressed when she ran against Roxanne. Chuck was stressed when he ran against Lisa. Lisa and Jamie, maybe you're stressed now. It gets the town all worked up. And we've got some other things that got us all worked up now too. This was a terrible distraction this week, where we have so many other weighty issues next week that we're dealing with, to have had to derail the hard work that should have been being done by this board to make that decision next week with this, I don't know what to call it. Now, to the merits. Some folks might want to just conserve all the land in town. And Chuck makes an excellent point. We can't afford to necessarily do that unless private purchasers want to pony up some money. All right? But there's this thing that we talk about in the housing trust meetings, which is the capital stack, which is that there's sometimes sources of money from a whole bunch of different sources. So it's not all or nothing. It's not like $600,000 of the taxpayers' money versus none of the taxpayers' money. There's a middle way here. Let me give you an example with this exact parcel. All right. On one end of the spectrum, you could subdivide that thing into up to 17 parcels and build more houses that currently exist on their Lake and Cross Road. At the other end of the spectrum, you could build no houses and have a situation where somebody, whether it's private donors or CPC or the town taxpayer, would be on the hook for that. But there's a middle way here, and that's why we get the 120 days. The middle way is to say maybe we do 1 or 2 or 3 housing lots. And maybe what we do is we conserve the vast amount of this land behind that is really important from the point of view of biomaps and habitat in terms of animals migrating and all the rest in town. Now, why do we get that 120 days? We get that 120 days because state law gives you, if you have 10 acres or more, the ability to get a 90% discount on your taxes if you run a farm or you own a forest. And guess what? All the rest of us pay for up to decades for those taxes that that person didn't pay because they preserve land. And that has been a tremendously successful program in Massachusetts, this Chapter 61. But in exchange for that, we the people get the right to decide if we want to buy that land or if we want to put together a coalition to buy that land. And that's why we get the 120 days. There's absolutely no reason to not avail ourselves of all the time we have to make that decision. I'm not even sure where I would stand if it was a $600,000 bill, but I'm pretty sure I know where it would stand if it was a $100,000 or $200,000 bill. That's the compromise in the middle. You know, I feel like what we have here is sort of like both a problematic decision to add this to the agenda because this is such a stressful time. You don't do these things 2 weeks before an election, guys. Everybody is stressed out with these elections. It happens every year. And I think it's also problematic because we've been paying the taxes on this parcel for 120 days, and we should get the time that we need to make this decision. You know, I don't know about you guys, but what I had planned to spend this week doing was to make the big giant decision. And this is one of the hardest decisions in 5 years on this board we faced, I feel, around what to do with the system. And that meant for me this week, and I got a new job, and I got an old job that's 30 days away from Old Town Hall being finished. And what that meant for me this week is finding the time to talk to BNRC about conservation restrictions and finding the time to go to Lennox and review conditions and deciding and watching all the 9 hours of tapes from all those meetings we've already had on that. So I could make an informed decision. And this derailed all of those efforts because of this, frankly, ridiculous charade of whatever this is, where you guys all of a sudden want to decide on behalf of the entire town what we think we should do. Chuck, for hundreds of times in the last 10 years, you've said, let the people decide. Guess what, Chuck? This is an example of that. We're not smarter than them. And with that, I no table pounding, but I cede my time.
Chuck, do you have anything?
No, I made my point. I think this is a decision that is just like, even if the town passes it, it's a selectman decision. And it's just too much of to me, it's too much of a risk. What happens when the next parcel of Chapter 61 comes up? Do we drain our other accounts to buy property?
It's not our money, Chuck. It's their money. If they want to buy land,
We
let them buy
are
land.
the representative of this, and if we can't, as a select member, I
You can vote against it.
can't,
Order in the room.
I just can't put,
Chuck, this
Let
isn't
the town go.
$600,000. None of us would ever support it if it was $600,000. You got tens of thousands of dollars have been committed by private donors. You got 100,000 from CPC.
no,
You've
we
got-
don't have 100,000.
Well, you maybe do, but why would you take it off the table till we actually know the real numbers? I am pretty good at numbers, Chuck, as you've
I know
seen
you
sitting
are,
through
but-
5 budgets. And I'm telling you that we have $2.5 million in free cash right now. We haven't put the money into Michael's stabilization fund yet. It's not 600,000. And if the town wants us to spend $100,000 or $200,000 to protect this land, that's their decision. It's not mine. It's their decision. And once we have that petition in, as you've said so many times before, let the people decide. It's their tax money. It's not ours. It isn't. Sorry for raising my voice.
It's our responsibility to keep a fiscal, reasonable financial fiscal budget for the town.
Chuck, you know,
And it's a private land sale. Miles came to us. It is his property, his family's property, came to us and was being kind and said, if a nonprofit wants it, they may buy it, but at the going price, it's $600,000. It is not, he put it in chapter 61 but it still brought in revenue, $84 an acre. So $2,940 per year. So we were gaining some monies from that being in 61. When he is able to sell his land, he will then pay the taxes he owes, and
it's not true.
For 5 years.
Yeah. That's not true.
I asked
Jeff, for
Michael
much longer than
Clay.
that.
I have land in 61. It's hard.
I know it is. I know it is.
Right, it's 5 years of revenue,
You know,
but it's 5 years of taxes we will get into our account. You are correct, it is 5. And thank you. And we have been gifted land in Glendale. We still haven't used or decided what to do with that. We could put it in conservation and it could be public land. And a correction, 2 corrections, is that we're a representative government, meaning we were elected to make decisions, the best decisions. And this is our decision because even say we take it to town meeting, to the citizens petition, say the voters say yes, it still comes back to us to decide if we release that $600,000 to
Not
purchase it.
600,000. I mean, it's not necessarily 600,000 because
I didn't have public comment. Thank you.
Jamie,
Yes, Patrick.
we can vote veto it after town meeting. And if we think it's imprudent, we can do that after town meeting. Why cut the legs out of town meeting first? And I just want to comment on prudence, right? 2009, the state changed the law that allowed us to get 6% in revenue from hotels. Okay? 2009. And I brought this up at finance committee after finance committee before I was elected in the 2000 teens. It's like, you know what? That extra, we were only charging 4%. Okay? And I brought it up over and over again. It was one of the reasons I ran. I was like, why are we not charging tourists who stay at the Red Line or an Airbnb and rather paying our property taxes? That saves every year the taxpayers. We passed that in 21, all right, after I got elected and then brought it to town meeting. That saves you guys on average $300-400 every single year. That one little decision. Nobody in this, I'm sorry if this sounds arrogant, but nobody is going to lecture me in this town about fiscal responsibility. I have worked my butt off to make sure that that tax rate stays at 1 to 2%. This year it's going up 3-4% because of the insurance. I work really hard on your behalf to keep your taxes low. I think it's really important that the people can afford their taxes. And we have a lot of people on fixed incomes in this town. Frankly, guys, you know, nobody on the finance committee made any effort to understand what the other kind of revenue sources we had in this deal was. And nobody on that finance committee, I think, is in a position to know all the parameters of what we might be able to do. Because we thought we had 120 days. And frankly, I thought we were focused on DeSisto, not on this, whatever this is. You know, your costs, I don't even know if we can get it done now. You cost us 2-3 days this week. And I don't know how hard you were working, but I was working really hard on this deal. All right. So my suggestion is we table this and I make a motion to table this and we table it till after the election and we decide what we're going to do after we hear from the town. I have a second.
Not yet.
Patrick, it's a three-person board and we all work hard and we all do our job and we all do our homework and we all try
When do you
to
do this again,
balance.
sister? I'm curious.
I don't have to answer that question.
I mean, I sent you an email 2 days ago asking for a site visit and never heard back. You know? I'm just saying, I don't ever hear back from you. You're the chair. You're supposed to set the meeting. You're supposed to work with us on the agenda and you never do.
Patrick,
just wondering what
when
you're
you
doing.
have an agenda item, all you have to do is tell Michael,
No, you're the chair. You're the chair.
never,
I sent you an email.
you did send it,
Yeah,
said,
never heard a word back.
all it said is want site visit, nothing else.
No, I said, please schedule a site visit with the system. I thought we should have a public site visit.
But it doesn't say a date, a time.
It's not up to me.
I
You're the
don't know your
chair.
schedule.
I said anytime Friday. I gave you a time. In fact, I suggested Friday at 3 p.m. in that email.
Okay, let's stay germane on this topic, please. If you want to not waste time. And also, I don't want to be baited.
Oh, come on, Janie. We're not going to always agree. It's okay if we disagree. I disagree with you on this.
My opinion from the start, and I believe I may have said it at the other, when we decided to wait the 120 days, that I would not spend any tax dollars money to preserve this land.
So vote against it.
So I think it's more detrimental to the town to put it in preserves or
No,
we got,
None of us can talk.
We haven't got there yet.
Mass General Law says 30A, Section 20G, it gives the chair, the public body discretion to decide whether to permit public comment during a meeting. It also addresses the meeting that we can have an orderly, quiet meeting.
Are you actually not going to allow public comment?
I'm not certain.
All right.
Is this a mom?
Okay, but I think that the board should have some prerogative to discuss things first. And she is the chair, so let's kind of everybody, and I'm as guilty as you heard me raise my voice. So I apologize to the room. We're getting a little bit worked up, so sometimes I do. So, let's just take that chill. All right, but look we're going to have some hard decisions in this town. All right, property is now worth more than it's ever been worth here. My house, since my dad died, has probably tripled in value in 11, 12 years. All right. For most of us who own property in the room, that's not the worst thing in the world to have our property values go up. Or it's not the worst thing to have our property values go up. But what the unintended consequence of the wealth that this generation has gotten from the increase in our property values is it's gotten really attractive for folks to build a lot of houses on a little bit of property. Now, right now we have, thanks to the work of a whole lot of people who came behind us, we've got concentrated zoning in the town center, and then we have more large acreage zoning in the outskirts of town, 2 4-acre zoning. The governor has made clear that she wants to eliminate the ability for those large lot zoning in Massachusetts, and that maybe works in Weston or Brookline or towns in the eastern Massachusetts, but it's maybe not so great for rural communities, especially seasonal ones, where there's a lot of demand for a lot of houses. She's talking about limiting us to half-acre zoning, all right? It's going to be really important if you want Stockbridge to continue to look like Stockbridge for us to take a little time over the next year and figure this out. Now, the model to figure that out is a little bit of money maybe comes from the town, and a little bit of money maybe comes from some donors, and a little bit of money maybe comes from, the CPC, and you put it all together and you exercise your right. And a little bit of the money, maybe even half, might come from, instead of doing 16 or 17 houses, which makes us suburban, makes us look like instead of what Long Meadow used to look like, what it looks like now. You put 2 or 3 houses in that mix, and all of a sudden we can maybe have 1 or 2 new neighbors on our quiet streets rather than 16 neighbors. There's a middle way here, and I'm just asking you guys, for a little town to figure out what the middle way is. Because I am certainly not suggesting this be 100% paid for by conservation or tax dollars. I'm just suggesting that there maybe is some middle ground here where maybe not, somebody who thinks it should be 100% conserved doesn't get their way, and somebody who thinks that we should pave every single square acre of land that we can to lower the tax rate doesn't get their way. There's a middle ground here, and I think we should take a little time to figure it out, guys.
If the citizens petition or article goes to town, it is not a place of finding a compromise. We have to, it is what it's written. It's that the town will give $600,000. It does not say it will come up with a solution or it does not, it is not written that way. So it's lovely to think that we could think of a compromise, but the time has passed. No one has come forth. No abutter has come and said, I have $600,000. I'm going to buy it and I will figure out the money thing. No one. The only group that gave a little bit, which is only 1/6 of it, is the CPC, but they still didn't have the application or applicant, but they did do a non-binding poll.
Which has to
We're
be,
still short $500,000 if in fact they could legally and technically give it, which I'm pretty unsure about because that doesn't follow. You have to, it has to go to our legal and has to come back, blah, blah, blah. It has many
you
steps.
gotta have a special town meeting.
In a special town meeting, which costs a lot of money. And I still want to go back to, I know that many people feel strongly about this and people feel very strongly, but we are very fortunate that we have so much land that is conserved. It's either in 61 or in CRs, or we have people who have, we also have lakes and swamps and rivers, and so you can't build on all of that. We are very fortunate as a town. We have met our affordable housing. There may be room for more. But we cannot not allow someone to sell their land. That would be like saying, Patrick, you can't sell your house, or Chucky,
He's
you
selling
can't
it
sell your
either way.
house.
Either the town buys it with the help of some others, or Jim Scalise buys it. He's selling it either way. And in terms of like the appropriation, the way the appropriation process actually works is the town would be authorizing the select board to spend not to exceed 600,000. If we end up spending 100 or 200 or 300, the select board would actually use its judgment to try to save you as much of that tax money as possible. And look at that. And I'll tell you right now, I agree with you, Jamie. If this ends up being $600,000 of taxpayer money for this, there's no way I would support it. But that doesn't mean that I don't give the folks time to figure it out, you know? And I'll make another point. We have over 50 of these properties that are 10 acres or more in chapter land. That gives us the right to intervene with this kind of deal when we want to. There's another 50, 60, 70 properties that are not in chapter, that are large parcel lands, and we have absolutely no say over whether those subdivide. People can subdivide them by right. Okay, so now you're looking at over 100 properties in town, all over town, where the bucolic rural deal this town could give way to a profit motive. I agree that we need to watch, we need to keep generating revenues for the tax base, which is one of the reasons I'm considering doing things like DeSisto and Elm Court and other cottage estate preservation projects, because they do help the tax rate. But it is, we can't do anything about the 60, 70 properties that are large lot, that are not in chapter, that could easily be subdivided by right. We can do something about the forests that are in chapter, to make a decision about whether or not we're going to take this meeting. And I'll tell you, if it costs $400 to rent some clickers or whatever it is to have a special town meeting. My God, we put in time every single week into this town, and you folks, you can show up at a special town meeting if we call one, please. All right, I mean, honest to God, it's like everybody can show up and be a part of citizen democracy if we have to have a special town meeting to talk about whether we conserve a property. This is going to come up over and over again, and we don't have a strategy yet. But I guarantee you, if you give us a couple of months, 6 months, we'll come up with a strategy to deal with these large parcels that are in Chapter 61.
I have a question. Am I right that at town meeting, the citizens petition can have amendments made to it?
Yes.
Okay, so it doesn't have to be 600,000 at all. Okay.
It says up to 600,000.
Anyway,
because we
okay.
knew from the beginning that we had a strategy to offset that.
Right.
There are 70 people here and on that Zoom. If I asked all of you that gave money towards this in the last 16 days, that's all we've had, 16 days, how much do you think we raised? As much as CPC. So Jamie, $600,000 is off the table. Chuck,
Either people have the money or they
no
don't.
one is asking you to support this or not support this. We have one question before you. Could you please, out of respect for the voters of Stockbridge, postpone this vote? That's all you're being asked. You have the right to vote last. That select board will vote last. They can listen to the will of the people and say, too bad, we know better. We're voting against this. No one can take that right away from you. But Jamie, I'm asking you, show respect for the voters and postpone this. That's all you're being asked. Not being asked about fiscal responsibility. John, you and I may differ about the value of the finance committee. But I will tell you, you are in the tax shape you are in because of the flight to safety during COVID. Because of the number of houses where a $100,000 house on the lake was torn down and a $5 million house was built. That's why Stockbridge is so rich. That's the good news. Here's the bad news, as Patrick said. Our property values now make us catnip to every developer. We need a plan.
We do need a plan, but
Yeah.
how do you,
And all,
how do you start by spending $600,000 on the first piece? When we got all these other pieces coming up.
A plan.
and Carol, we haven't opened the floor yet, so
That's
thank you.
perfectly all right.
We're not
Thank you.
spending 600,000. Let's do 3 building
And
lots, sell for 100,000 each.
We also, no one has come forth with a check.
Well-
No one has said,
Jim
Here's-
Solis talked to Michael after the system meeting and said he was amenable to a compromise here where 2 or 3 houses could be built, where maybe 5, I don't know, some number, and the rest of it might be conserved. He seems like a good guy, actually. I really like him, and he wants to move his kid in, his young family in, which we love. Okay, the fact is, there's a compromise here.
that's not the
Well,
problem.
who's, you saying 2 or 3 houses built? Who's building these 2 or 3 houses?
There's no plan. There's been no.
Exactly, and that's why we need a little more time. Because some of us have been busy, and all 3 of us have been busy on working on this other big giant deal that is controversial in town. I haven't had any time to focus on this one yet, but even the potential buyer has said he's interested in a compromise. Why would this board possibly not follow his lead? That's the easy thing here. You do a couple of building lots for 100 grand each, 300,000, you take 100,000 for the neighbors or whatever who want to do part of it in a conservation restriction, 100,000 from CPC, and you pretty much got your money. This is not that complex a deal, folks, and it's not that expensive a deal for the town. There's some extremists in this town who have always felt that we should build as much as we could. And some of them, frankly, are on the finance committee, and I absolutely reject that. Part of what makes Stockbridge special is that despite Tanglewood is in Stockbridge, and you can do concentric circles out from Tanglewood as to the value of real estate. All right, concentric circles going out. That is the
Order in
most
the
valuable.
room. Can you stop talking, please? Thank you.
Yeah, the fact is that like, if we want to protect this town, we're going to have a modest growth strategy coupled with a strategy to defend the rural nature of this town, because nobody is going to want to build if this becomes if this is going to become Levittown. You want to see your property values evaporate real quick? Let this become Levittown. You know, that is in none of our interests. All right? Don't do it. We don't need to rush this decision. We get the final pass at it. Let's make it in June.
Also at the MMA meeting on Saturday, Senator Mark, who's our senator, said we have this $1 million tax and it's working way better than anyone expected. And that money's, if some of you know about, goes towards our education and infrastructure, meaning roads, bridges. So people are not leaving Massachusetts. People are buying houses in Massachusetts. So it is not a bad thing for someone to build a couple of houses and have neighbors and have new people come into our towns. And, you know, and the Maura Healey has been striving for more houses, more, you know, ADUs. We have to consider, we cannot just have land and conservation. We do need to build a few houses.
Oh, good. We're talking about DeSisto next week. It's 170 units. What are you talking about that we're not considering building houses? It's like 10% increase our housing stock if we permit that. You know,
Well, this is residential housing in a residential neighborhood.
how much is enough? And how much are you going to basically blanket this town? I am not saying no build, no housing, Chuck. I am saying that there's a compromise here. You do 2 or 3 and the town can drive the compromise because it has rights. These taxpayers have rights because they have subsidized the tax on that property for decades. So we have a compromise when we have a right of first refusal that you guys are voting to give up. Who would negotiate that way when we don't have rights? Because the second that you give up your right, then basically the purchaser could do one of 2 things. He could build the 2 or 3 houses for him and his family, which I think most of us would support. I love the idea of a young couple and the nice guy is a business owner moving to Stockbridge, and he seems generally like a good guy. All right. Or it would be his decision. He could decide to just subdivide it into 16 units and have every right to do it because subdivision is by right in Massachusetts. Why would we give up a little bit of time to negotiate the thing that is in both the neighborhood's interest and the town's interest and costs us nearly nothing if we sell off several building lots? Why would we do that?
Patrick, where's this money coming from?
Where's
That
what
you're-
money coming from?
This money that you think is gonna come if we wait another 3 weeks.
All right,
Where?
let's walk through it.
Why don't you let us speak and we'll tell you?
You're not done, Carol. Thank you. Thank
Let's
you.
walk through it.
Thanks so much.
All right. First, let's say, for example, we had negotiated through a subdivision of this property that involved 3 building lots and a conservation of the 28 acres in the back. All right, 3 2-acre lots. And let's say those lots have a pre-negotiated price of, let's say, 100 grand each. All right, so right there, the buyer has saved 300,000 on the $600,000 price. Now, the other 300,000, it's my understanding, I haven't seen any of the donors, but I understand that some private folks have pledged well over 50,000, maybe upwards of $100,000 towards this project. I also heard CPC, which is taxpayer money that we specifically put aside for land deals, not put up 600,000, which would be more than it even has, but pledge up to 100,000. And then the final thing might be that the taxpayers would be asked to put up $50,000, $100,000 to finish it out. that the guy that wants to buy the property gets his house and his kid's house. The folks who don't want 16 new houses on a road that has like 10 get to kind of preserve the beautiful nature of Interlake and Crossroad. And everybody gets something, and maybe nobody gets everything. And that's the way compromises work, guys. There isn't a relatively easy way to get this done. And I would just suggest that we don't need to give up our rights today. We can avail ourselves of our rights right up to June 8th.
Chuck?
How legal is it for the town to take private money?
Michael's not a lawyer.
Or can we call that?
We had 2 days to ask Donna questions.
And if we do that and sell the lots, can we legally sell lots? Or do we have to do it through,
We can get those answers. I don't have those answers offhand under chapter
And
61.
we don't need to exercise our right under chapter 61. We just need to negotiate with the potential buyer and say, let's get a letter of agreement that says, you know what, you won't build more than 4 houses. And, and in exchange for that, some folks are going to give you 100,000 and the Conservation Commission is going to hold the CR for a fee. It's called a fee CR, fee conservation restriction for 50 grand, whatever it is. You basically come up with an agreement that basically understands, I'm a Reagan Democrat. Remember Reagan, trust but verify. I trust the buyer, actually. I think he's a nice guy. I've watched him in meetings for 5 years. But you know what? It's our job as a town to verify that, if we're talking 4 houses, which I think people could live with, 3 houses, maybe, I don't know, versus 16, which I think folks are going to come out with pitchforks. How about we just kind of talk to him? Why not have a conversation with the buyer? Well, we don't have to necessarily ever exercise our Chapter 61 right. We just need to know what his plan is and use our power to acquire it as our leverage. That's what you do in negotiations. You don't give up your leverage.
What's your problem with that?
Chuck, yes. Seriously?
Yeah, you're ridiculous, but go ahead.
Yeah, really, excuse me.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Chuck?
I don't know, it's just. I mean, it's Stockbridge, we're not in the real estate business. I mean, here we are negotiating $600,000. We get a few months' money, it's a little less, but it's still taxpayers' money. We lose tax revenue, we lose, ever on it. Every development comes up, it gets attacked. It gets just, nobody wants it in their backyard. We got more land coming up. Like I said, we should have a plan, but we can't afford to buy every piece of property that comes up under
We can't.
chapter
You're
61.
right. You're right.
And
Doesn't mean we can't have a plan. We can't think about it. We can't try to let people come up with ideas.
right, so, but in 2 weeks to come up with a plan, why don't we come up with a plan for future lands coming up, which I would agree with. But this is too many loose ends for this, too many
Look, the number
ifs
isn't,
and whats.
the number isn't
60, it's 100 people.
100 people showed up for this.
And our
is that ever-
select board meeting was April 3rd and the land trust was April 14th and the CPC meeting was April 22nd and there was still, no one has become sort of taken charge and gathered money or come forth with monies because it's 600,000, you don't get a deal on it. That's what the Miles Moffat's family wants, and that's what they're expecting to get from somebody.
You're going to get 600,000. This is a right of first refusal. We have to.
So, but my point is, it is now May 8th. It has been well over a month, and no one has said, we have an applicant, we have a person, a coalition, we know what we want to do. And it just, as again, I'll restate, I know this is emotional, but we can't buy every chapter 61 lands.
How do you know? If it was $50,000 in taxpayer money and the other 90% from private sources or other sources, how do you know we couldn't buy most of the chapter lands? I don't think we should be encouraging this. I am telling you, you cannot imagine how fast these towns around Springfield went from looking like this to looking like that. You can't imagine how fast that happened. We are, I hate to say ground zero because it's such a terrible reference. We are the epicenter. Well, that's not much better. We are the center of the cultural district in the Berkshires. Tanglewood is in Stockbridge. This is going to happen here. The prices have gotten too high. The average sale, 18 out of the last 20 sales have been over $1 million in this town. There's too much money on the table not for people to try to do this. And some of them we're not going to be able to block. All right, we got to come up with a plan for this. Nobody, and I'll tell you this, a lot of these folks spent a lot of money recently on their houses because they love how it looks here. You know, it's not just the old timers who love the old Stockbridge. A lot of folks invest in this town because they love it like it looks now. All right, you gotta understand. And Chuck, to your point, we are absolutely in the real estate business. We got two jobs in this board: to raise and appropriate, which is basically set your budget, and to deal with every special permit, land use decision that comes before this town. Most towns, it's the zoning board of appeals or the planning board. Not here in Stockbridge. This board decides everything that has to do with land use. So we are in the real estate business now, Chuck, and I am telling you, doing nothing is absolutely doing something.
Well, my opinion is if any of the town entities was interested in this land and they were gonna pursue it, and their reasonings are all great reasonings why not to. So I take their advice very strongly. So another pieces come up and they're critical pieces of land, and they're interested and they can give so much, then that's a different issue, because then we can, you know, you're preserving land that really needs to be preserved. This isn't that piece of land. And if that land comes up shortly, we don't have the finances to
Plan
protect
is
it.
the finance committee's purview over land use decisions.
They're not the
And
land.
frankly, there's 7 people on that committee, and everybody knew I was working on this. And any one of them could have called me, and not one of them took the time to get educated as to what was really going on with this. But of course I knew. I talked about the people raising the money. Of course I knew. Anybody who's called me this week, of which several dozen have.
I got a lot of calls too.
Yeah, I can imagine you did.
And all of them were on the other side. So all I want to say is we may end up with a piece of land in a few months that we really would like to preserve, and we're not going to have the finances to do it.
Says who?
Says,
The boundaries of the budget.
you know, it's
Okay, tell me, explain to me about
We got
what about the
like-
budget are you worried about? Because this is something I actually have some
$600,000
expertise.
coming out of free cash that we use.
Nobody's saying 600,000. I won't support 600,000. I'm telling you right now. If the number is 600,000, this deal doesn't get done. If it's 100,000, 50,000, the deal gets done. There's no way that we would be, that would be reckless. $100,000, you know how much we throw? You know what free cash is? Free cash is how much we charged you too much last year. All right? Free cash is basically like, you know what, it's imperfect. The whole prediction of how to do a budget is imperfect because you don't want to predict that we're going to get 100% of the revenue from the Red Lions gazillion visitors. And by the way, last year they had record numbers. So we budget at 90%. Some things we budget at 80% because it's really hard to raise more money if we do it too tight. So we don't budget 100%. We budget at 80 or 90 and you pay extra every year. So this isn't free cash. This is you pay an extra and then next year it comes back when we count all the dollars and nickels. All right. This every year I've been on this board, we've exceeded what we expected with the budget. And that's why we throw off so much free cash. Because it turns out this is a great place to visit, a great place to build a house, and a great place to live. And how about we keep it that way? You know, this isn't rocket science, folks, and we don't need to worry about free cash. And I'm saying that as somebody who's been immersed in this budget for 5 years.
There's two, I'm sure there's several examples, but two pop up about Quiet Knoll Road, which was a short little road and someone bought some land, built a few more houses. There's Brook Lane, which is off of the Interlake and Crossroads. Someone bought the land, broke it up, and there's several little houses or medium-sized houses there. Okay, order in the room, please. Thank you. And so this does happen in all towns and even our little town. And our town is aging. And the only way we're going to get new people is if we have more housing. And that's, and the man who wants to buy it, like you said, Patrick, he wants to build it for his family. Like he doesn't, this isn't going to be a commercial thing with, it's not a crazy development. It's
How do you
just,
know that? How do you know he's not going to change his mind once you give him?
there's a pipeline, there's wetlands, there's junk cars. Like how much can he build on it?
So houses on that road are selling for $1.5 million each.
That's
Put in
the
16 houses,
normal
that's
price
16 to
now.
$24 million. I guarantee you I could find a hauler to come and take a junk car out. This is big money, folks. We can't, most of us in this room can't imagine how much money people can make with our land. All right? And I'm not saying don't ever build. We could never afford to buy all 50 properties coming out of chapter if that were to happen. What I'm suggesting is we come up with a strategy and we just basically try to be smart about this. And for example, negotiate 3 houses, not 16. And in the absence of that, if somebody won't play ball.
Negotiate with who?
With the buyer.
How?
We call up Jim Scalise and we say, Jim, will you agree in writing to build 3 houses only? And if we
Pretty
get
sure
to,
we can't do that.
I am pretty sure nobody has asked.
Did.
I am pretty sure nobody's asked.
Distracting.
I am pretty sure nobody's asked. I know I haven't called the developer. I try to avoid doing that. But if I'd be happy to take a meeting with Michael there and to see if we can negotiate a deal with this guy. And all of a sudden,
It's
everybody's
not-
rights are protected.
It's not our land to negotiate.
It is our land. It's in chapter 61. We have every right to negotiate it because we paid the taxes on it for decades. That's why we have a right of first refusal. We do have a fee interest in that land. We paid the taxes on it.
Why don't you just postpone till after the?
Why don't we do you want to take a vote?
I want to make a motion to let the public speak. 100 people showed up on Zoom and in this room. I don't care if we're here till 11 o'clock at night. I want to hear from the people. You can't whisper. You cannot whisper if you.
That we can't hear over the clapping.
That's not true. You were just whispering. You can't do it.
So
I've made a motion that the public be able to speak.
Chuck, how do you feel?
Voice of the people.
With the 2-minute limitation, like we do at every other meeting. That's protocol at a meeting, okay? So that's all right. And just, if it's duplications, just so we don't get anything duplicated. That's
The voice of the people.
Do you have something to say, Don? You may come to the podium and speak.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Introduce yourself.
I certainly know how to do that. Don Shavon Lake Drive. I think you should permit people to speak. And I think you should hear what they have to
I
say.
think we said that we would,
Okay, good, thank you.
but you made fun of the 2-minute rule.
Need to vote, Jim.
Make a vote. I make a motion that we allow everyone to speak,
Limit to an hour.
limited to 1 hour.
Why?
Oh, everybody's 2 minutes, it's less than.
Yeah, it's 3
everybody-
hours.
Less than an hour.
It's people's neighborhoods, Chuck.
Yeah, but
We can't spend an extra hour listening to what people have to say.
let's see what happens within an hour. I'll second the motion for 2 minutes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Sally, would you like to start?
Yes. I'm Sally Underwood Miller, 10 Rattlesnake Mountain Road. I think the thing that we're missing here is that the town, if you take the right of first refusal and the property is purchased for $600,000, that we're not spending any money. And I think that's kind of the bottom line. There have been projects all around town I've been involved with. I was one of the founding members of the Land Trust. And we did a lot of research before the Land Trust was put together. And part of it is to put together the kind of coalition that Patrick's been talking about, where you build 3 houses, 4 houses, 5 houses, you sell them for a certain amount of money and you take the money back. The money could come back to the CPC, money could come back to the town. There are ways for that money to be recouped. So Chuck, I applaud your fiscal responsibility, but I think that we have ways of making it work so that we aren't spending taxpayer money. And the CPC has to have an applicant in order for it to be something that we consider. We have not yet had an applicant. We understand that we're required to do that. And we will respond once and if we have one.
The town could be the applicant.
Town could be the applicant.
Yeah, exactly. So if we can put together a deal, the town could be the applicant and access these pieces of money.
May I be heard on Zoom?
Thank you. I didn't call on you, Bruce. Thank you. Anyone in the second row? Lisa? 2 minutes?
I'll make it brief. This is Sauer. I fail to see why this can't wait until June 10th. It was agreed by the board that it would be 120 days. I hardly see what difference it would make to allow it to go until June 10th.
Laura?
Oh, okay. I also fail to see the wisdom.
Who are you?
Oh, excuse me, Laura Smith, and I'm on Quiet Knoll Road. The aforementioned Quiet Knoll Road. I fail to see the urgency for the board to act today when in 11 days, there will be many more of the residents voicing their opinions. And in fact, I was privy to a note that Michael sent to a butter who was very upset. And in that note, you said, well, it's an item on the warrant and the residents will have plenty of time to discuss the merits at that meeting. And if it's voted down now, that will not be the case. There'll be no sense at having group discussion at that meeting. So I think it's the vote, you still have the power at the end, from what I understand. Let the voice of the people speak first and then exercise your power as a select board.
Thank you.
May I be heard on Zoom?
We're not doing the Zoom yet. There's many people in the room. Anyone in the second row?
Joey Miller, I live on Elm Street in Stockbridge, lifelong resident of Stockbridge. My mother, was a lifelong resident of Stockbridge. My father, of course, was Joseph Franz, who built the Temple of Music shed. which brought a lot of the tourism to Stockbridge. And I know if he were alive, he would certainly have solved this problem very simply. The town has the right, first option. They can buy it and they can sell it like right away. And their financial responsibility will be done with. I mean, if they'll buy it for 100,000 and sell it, or 600,000 and sell it for 600,000, you know, what's the problem?
Thank you. Mm-mm. It's just comment. Anyone else in the second row? Katie?
Hi, Katie Swede. Listening back and forth, I came into this meeting thinking $600,000 for the property is insane, which I still think it is for the taxpayers. I would like to see if we can get legal advice to see if it is legal for the private funds and some town funds, if it is legal. Because I think that will solve a lot of, I think that would actually help the middle ground of the in-between that I think would be a great compromise. But I think reaching out to the lawyers to see if private funds and town funds can be a thing. I'm sorry, I don't like public speaking, but I think a good step would be to get legal advice to see if there is that happy middle ground where we can say we can sell part of it for development and keep some of it open resources. And then that, I think that would be a great middle ground.
Thank you, Katie. Anyone else in the second row? Third row? Go ahead.
I'm Brent Wiggins, I live on Prospect Hill Road. I am just having a really hard time understanding why this board would give away their leverage by voting tonight not to do this thing, to take it off the table altogether. You give away your right of first refusal, that's it. When you have another opportunity, you know you will have another opportunity to squash this thing if that's what you want to do later. But before the warrant item has been discussed and voted on in the town meeting, it makes no sense to me, except if you feel that it was passed at the town meeting and the pressure of that decision of the public would be too much to handle at a later time. But even that doesn't make sense because this doesn't obligate the town to spend $600,000. That's been a point made over and over again. We're not compelling you, even in the town meeting, to spend $600,000. And I think most people here would agree that $600,000 of the town money to purchase that piece of land would be unacceptable. So, you know, I would really like to hear why it has to be.
Thank you.
Tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, row ends. Next row, fourth row.
Yeah, okay, am I in a row?
You can be in the, oh,
Great column.
Okay, thank you. I'm Laura DeVester, and
I would just say that this is a little bit about land, but it's really mostly about democracy. And whether you have the right or authority is different from choosing to exercise that right or authority and wanting to listen to the voters. And it just seems to me, this is really almost to prevent people at town meeting from sharing their thoughts and people even going before. We still have 2 weeks to town meeting for people to come up with their thoughts or more money or more ideas. I want to first of all say, Chuck, I think you and Jamie are both listening and I appreciate that. I want to I know you're thoughtful people, so that's very positive. The other thing I wanted just to well, anyway, I think the land policy and all those are really secondary to having the conversation at town meeting. That's the most important thing.
Thank you, Laura.
I don't listen.
No, you don't.
Evening, John Gottlieb, Birch Lane, and I apologize for probably being on the opposite side of just about everybody who's here and on Zoom.
Please.
I don't have a position on whether it should be voted on tonight or town meeting. I understand a lot of waiting. I'm not against that, but I would like to say some reason why I don't think the fear of development in general and on this particular parcel is really warranted. In this town, we have, just for example, parcels for sale now. I just want to give you a list because it's interesting to see how many acres they are and how many lots are proposed on them. 19 acres for sale for $550,000. The ad, where you would be marketing as much as you could, says they anticipate one building lot. 25 acres for just under 300,000. The ad says that can probably be 2 lots. An 8-acre parcel, 240,000 one lot. And there are some lots over on Wheatley Drive where the 9 acres and they think they might be able to make it into 2 lots. It's not so easy to take a grid of 2-acre lots and slap it on a map of a piece of land and say, that's how you can subdivide. It takes 15 or 20% for the roads and for the infrastructure that comes off the buildable area. It's just very rare that happens. We also in this town, we talk a lot about as of right, but in fact, we have very rigorous land use regulations. And one of the most rigorous is the subdivision regulation, which the planning board administers, not a group that's gung-ho to be the big developers that Patrick says we've got some of. I'm sure we do, but they're not on the planning board. And in the subdivision regulations, there's a particular additional hurdle with higher standards yet for subdivisions of 10 acres or more. And as a person who's been doing development for 40 years, although mine is all exclusively affordable, deeply affordable housing.
Gentle time.
For-profit housing, I can tell you that
Gentle
nobody
time.
thinks that they want to rush into a development.
Gentle time, sorry.
Time.
Time.
Even though I'm the only one who's going to be on this side.
I hope not. You did a great job.
Yes.
Time.
Time. But
Okay.
thank you so much.
Thank you.
He was polite. He's been courteous.
Thank you.
Thank you. 5th row. 5th, which is the man with a pink shirt, orange shirt. It looks pink to me.
It's you.
Yeah, you're close. You're close enough.
No, a man.
It looks great at me.
My name is Peter Ackley, and I live at 15 Willard Hill Road, just north of the art school. And I would like to just address the process that I'm witnessing tonight. I served in Vietnam in the Marine Corps, and I was wounded over there. And looking back on that, what were we trying to accomplish? We were trying to promote democracy. We were trying to protect democracy. We were trying to thwart authoritarianism. That didn't work out, as we know. But I come home now and I look at this process. I find it very arbitrary and I find it unnecessary. I'd just like to say in closing that I think we should fall back on the original principle of this country, listen to the people. There's no reason not to do that. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Peter. Nick?
Good evening, I'm Nick Nadorf. I own 2 commercial properties, one on Pine Street, one on Depot Street. Been here since 1975 when I bought a house, when a guy could afford a house in Stockbridge. I have a lot of credentials, so one of them, which is I'm a real estate broker, so I do study this. I think I have a very simple solution. Being a mechanic, I know how to fix things, all right? I think I can address the problems here. I think Stockbridge should buy this property. I think when Stockbridge buys this property, they have the option then to put deed restrictions on this with the guidance of someone like Sally and Wood Miller and the other people that understand what goes on in Stockbridge. I think we could create a property that had a viable marketability and the restrictions that you want, given the wetlands, given the road frontage, things like that. I agree with Steve. I agree with Chuck. We shouldn't just let this, happen. Because there is something called Form A. Approval not required. If they have frontiers enough, they don't need to ask a question, they just get it. So I think there's a way Stockbridge could own this property, put their own deed restrictions on it, and be done with it. Thank you for listening.
You next. In the fifth row, there's a few people. No, sixth row, the back row, the side.
Yeah, really. So. Don Shavon Lake Drive again. You say you're the voice of the people, Mr. Cardillo. And Jamie, I think you should listen to the voice of the people. I think you're hearing what they're saying. Thank you.
Thank you. Hang on. Just one second. A woman with gray sweater.
Hi, Mary Ann Goodell. I live right across the street from the property. And I would just ask that you extend the time so that the people's voice are heard at the town meeting. And I agree that I have no problem with building, but I would think there would be a compromise that some restricted building.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is it Peter in the Zoom box?
Yes.
Minutes?
Peter Strauss, 9 Oak Street. And I want to associate myself with where Patrick started. The whole issue tonight is protecting democracy. There is too little of it in the world. There's too little of it in Washington, and we ought not to be imitating that. Keep this for the town meeting.
Thank you. Anyone in the Zoom box, please raise your hand if you want to share. Michael Nathan. Introduce yourself.
I'll try. Michael Nathan, Lake Drive. I don't know if this is allowed what I'm gonna do. But we really don't know what the public here feels. There are some people that feel can we ask for a raise of hands of those that wish to delay it? Because I believe that this is not about money. This is just about options. If you've ever had a business, whatever, you want to keep your options open. It's very important to keep your options open because you really don't know what may come up or what solutions may come up. So it's not about 600,000. It's not about figuring it out. It's about just keeping your options for as long as you can. And since the end result will be no different in 11 days or how many days than it is today, why not keep your options open? I'm just not sure why the decision has to be made tonight versus in 11 days. And that argument hasn't sunk into me yet. But is it possible to ask for a show of hands from people that want to make this option in 11 days versus tonight? Can I?
It's 30 days.
30 days. Patrick, correct me then. So this way it gives us an idea if the public, we keep saying let the public think about it, but the only way to know if the public is for an option in 30 days versus tonight, we have to be fair to the select board and raise our hands if we're for it in 30 days or against it in 30 days. So is that possible? Am I out of line here?
I think you already did it.
Oh, no, I'm gonna ask if anyone wants it to be delayed for 30 days for the town meeting, please raise your hand. Okay, this gives us a sense of.
Hey, you're out of time, gentle time.
I apologize. Thank you very much for giving me the time.
You're welcome. There's some hands on the Zoom, so I'll start with.
I'm not sure if they put up their hands.
So-
Bruce Auerbach has his hand up.
I know,
They do it.
but didn't we hear from Peter already?
Yeah, I think some had, if you
Okay.
could just ask them to put down their hands and then put them back up.
So
if
I
they wish
can't
to talk.
read the corner one, Michael.
I think they're put the hands up.
Julie Edmonds had her hand up before.
Oh, she did. Okay, Julie,
Yes, I had my hand up.
you may speak.
I don't want to speak. I just want to, Patrick.
Oh, I thought it was.
Hey, you unlike Leach, Michael.
Bruce, did you want to speak? Bruce, do you want to speak?
I would very much like to speak.
Then you may.
Thank you, Bruce Auerbach. I actually live on Interlake and Crossroad. I'd just like to correct Brookside Lane has a number of houses on it, none of which are small or even moderate. They're all very, very large. And I, as Patrick pointed out initially, if this land were to be fully developed, it will more than double the entirety of properties that already exist in Interlake and Crossroad, including Brookside Lane. But my main concern is what the last speaker basically was talking about, and where Patrick started, is that we have a democracy, we have a process. There was a citizen's petition that was put forward to allow this to be on the warrant for our upcoming upcoming town meeting. And I think that the select board is not relinquishing any of its rights or responsibilities by not voting on this tonight, but allowing the public, the voters that basically elected the select board, to have their say and see if there's in fact amendments that could be made to the petition and a compromise that can come about that basically would allow the town to obtain the land, to not give up, not release its right of first refusal, and to put a coalition together that would allow for some development to occur and the retention of some of the natural habitat that we know exists on that property. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I can't read.
Yeah, and her.
I think I'll get it.
It's Natasha.
Natasha, yes.
Natasha.
Yep. Hi there. Hi, everyone. First of all, I just want to thank everybody for turning out. It's just heartening to see the community come together. I think it kind of is in many ways a marker of how seriously we as a community are taking this issue. I live, my husband and my daughter and I are at 6 Interlake and Cross Roads, so we're exactly adjacent to the 35 acres. So, you know, this hits home directly for us. The impact on us, I think, is probably as acute as it could be. But, you know, I think what, again, has been heartening for us is that the entire community, people who don't even live on Interlake and Cross Road, understand why this is so vital. I mean, it's certainly about conservation. I mean, we see the wildlife in our yard, and it's a huge part of the charm and the tranquility and what we love about the neighborhood. But, you know, we've put a ton of effort as a group into trying to come up with a solution. I mean, a lot of us work for full time. We have aging parents and a lot of things that are going on in our life. And the amount of time that we have devoted as a collective to trying to find a solution that is, you know, I think the compromise solutions are very viable, but we have been devoting immense amounts of our personal time trying to figure out a way to make this work, whether it's a buyout. We've been hosting fundraisings, we've been writing letters, which I'm sure you've seen. And the idea that there's, you know, any movement to try to silence the efforts to slow down our momentum, to block what we're doing is so incredibly disheartening and frustrating. I made my point clear in a letter to the selectmen today, to the select board. I mean, I think at the end of the day, of course, you know, I'm in favor of the pause. I just think it's respectful to let the community be able to rally together and come up with a solution and attempt to fundraise. And, you know, to think that all of this effort has been a waste of time is crushing.
Time. Thank you.
Yeah. So, you know, hopefully we get the pause. Thank you very much.
No other hands.
Any other people on Zoom? Seeing none. All right.
Okay, so can we make more comments?
We can.
Okay. First of all, thank you for coming out. And I think having this meeting before the town meeting was good, because this got dropped in our laps right at the end. We had no time to look into this whatsoever. $600,000 is a massive amount of money. It puts us way back in our funding and stuff. So when's the deadline?
I believe it's June 10th.
June 10th, which leaves us how long?
4 weeks.
Basically have a month. You would have a meeting the first week of June, which then you would have to make your
1, 2,
decision.
3, 4 weeks.
Chuck, I'm with you.
So let me,
Sure.
I mean, I was coming in here and I'm still against not spending tax dollars of our free cash on this. That's something I'm pretty adamant about. But we got to June 10th. Raise the money you can raise. See what you can do. And by that date, if that's not up close enough for us to make a decision, and I said that still might not be in favor of it, and depending, I mean, because I still in favor of some development. And it's a tough decision on our end, because we are representing the town and we did get elected to represent the town, and this is our decision. We could end it tonight. We could drag it along.
I could get more information. I'm sorry.
I think the biggest hurdle is the right of first refusal is the town in any town affiliation. So I'm not sure how private funding fits into that. I think we really have to, what's presented is call it legal. Find out how legal that is, because if it's not legal, then that changes a lot of things. Anything else?
And,
I mean, it's,
So then a motion to table this for now and we'll revisit it after town meeting. I'm sorry you just said.
that's what I'm saying, but, it's, back Jamie 100% for picking this up, because I think we had to. I think if all this was at town meeting, it will be very, 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 very time consuming. So this is almost like a baby town meeting.
More than we get sometimes at town meeting.
Oh, boy.
One word, second.
So I would like to say I appreciate everyone, they came, you've shared. I didn't appreciate some of the uncourteous things, but I'll let that go. This is really hard to spend, these huge amounts of money and but if we do find solutions, we need to see if it's okay. Just like when we're moving signs, we have to ask DOT if we can put in a sign certain places. So we have to find out if it's really an option to take fundraising money and add it to other monies and it's all will be okay. I'm sure there's ways, but we have to find out how it's done and the process. And I do think it would have been super confusing town meeting to, because this is, again, everyone's feelings are so heightened. And yeah. So I'll make a second.
Did I make a motion?
Well, I made a motion. Since the two of you commented, my only comment, guys, is it's kind of our job to lead. I mean, we're talking about kind of like.
Patrick, I made a motion.
So the motion is to
Go to do the citizens petition, ask if we have to ask.
I made a motion to table until after town meeting. I made that 5 minutes ago.
But we gotta look into the legal.
Still table, but the answer is, yeah.
I'll second that motion.
I did.
Okay.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Yep.
Adjourn.
How you gonna quiet? They need to be quiet. We haven't adjourned.
Second.
Chuck, motion. All in favor? Patrick.
No, just.
Patrick.
You can adjourn. So moved. You don't.
Okay.